Good morning. I'm Joyce Parkin, a member of the board here at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston. We're glad you're with us this morning, whether you're here in the sanctuary or joining us on Zoom. No matter how old you are, how young you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, whomever you love, however you identify, please know that you're welcome here. And let's take a moment now for those of us here in the sanctuary to wave hello to those joining us online. That's a nice new tradition. I really like that. One of our long-held traditions here at UUCR is to conduct lay-led services. This gives us the opportunity to hear diverse perspectives and new ideas from our congregants. Our service today will be lay-led by Andrée Comiskey. Andrée is a professor of communication studies and film at Montgomery College in Maryland. She has a background in film, media, performance studies, creative writing, and museum work. Andrée has published several chapters in academic texts and delivered 35 competitive paper and panel presentations. She's been a member of UUCR since March 2019 and is a former chair of our worship committee. Andrée has two sons. Knox is 13 and plays basketball. Blaze is 15 and a Muay Thai fighter. And he's also a creative entrepreneur who can be hired for jobs like window washing and yard work. The family dog sits and they have a small golden doodle puppy named London Cookie. Thanks for leading the service today, Andrée. It's time for announcements, and there's just a few. In preparation for our Memorial Day service, Reverend Aileen would like you to send a photo of a loved one who has died and who served our country in any of the armed forces. Please send a photo of your loved one to Reverend Aileen by this Tuesday, May 20th. Before you leave, please drop by the table in the East Foyer for information about registering your child for religious education this summer and the 2025-26 church year. You can also get information about how you can volunteer in the RE program. On Sunday, June 15th, we'll be welcoming new members who have joined UUCR since January in a brief ceremony during the service. If you're considering becoming a UUCR member and would like to participate in the event, please contact Kathy Delianis, our membership chair, and Kathy is in the back waving. Thanks. Finally, after the service today, UUCR's board will present the process and result of its work to revise our current church constitution. A revision is necessary to align the Constitution with the governance model which was previously approved by this congregation. The board intends to request approval of the revised Constitution by the congregation during our upcoming fiscal meeting on June 1st, so please stick around after the service for the board's presentation. Now, let's center ourselves for worship. If you haven't done so already, take a moment to put your electronic devices in silent mode. Thank you. Please take some deep, quieting breaths with me. Let's enter our time of worship together as we listen to this morning's prelude.
Andrée Comiskey, and the opening words today that I will share with you are a poem titled Boatman on the Mayaka River by Carol Wood Hardy, a longtime member of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Rockport. He waits where the river widens into a lake. Let the alligators wait, sleepless, under the brackish water. Let the vultures sit silent. I will go across with him, touch the coarse weave of his coat, smell the odor of swamp grass in his beard, and I will find the shape of morning as we go.
Our opening hymn this morning is number 300, With Heart and Mind. Please rise in body or spirit and join the song.
Today's chalice lighting is in my own words. Beauty comes from the truths we have learned, but long feared to share. Let your beauty come from your core self and surpass your concerns of the past. Let it provoke you to bring kindness, insight, and joy into a world that needs them now more than ever. Let it inspire your future self to know that you did this, not because you had to, but because you found the courage to share your beauty in this very moment and bring it to life.
Here at UUCR, we have a beloved tradition of singing our covenant together every Sunday. Love is the spirit of this church. We will remain seated as we sing our covenant together. And if you are here today for the first time, please accept this song as our blessing to you.
Now is the time for all ages. So if anyone is feeling young of body or young of spirit today, I invite you to come forward. And as they do, I invite everyone to get out your index card and pencil or go find one. Come on up. Welcome. Our theme this month is imagination. And the service today is about Unitarian Universalist poets. And when I think of imaginative poets, I think of E.E. Cummings. Did you know that E.E. Cummings was a Unitarian? He grew up in a Unitarian church. And in fact, his father was a minister. E.E. Cummings enjoyed writing poetry from a very young age. And he grew up to be a very imaginative poet who liked to experiment. And he called this the firstness. He often didn't use capital letters or punctuation like periods and commas. And sometimes he made poetry where the words were arranged around the page to make a design or even a picture to express an idea or to show something. And this poem, The Sky Was, is a poem that I really like for imagination because it reminds me of laying down in the grass, looking up at the sky, watching the clouds move, and imagining animals and ships and castles and even entire stories as I looked at the sky. There's kind of disagreement about how this should be read and what the spaces mean, but I'll give it a try. The sky was candy luminous, edible, spry, pink, shy, lemons, greens, cool chocolates under a locomotive spouting violets. Now, I invite you each to become poets. Take out the card that you have and imagine a sky. Think of the sky outside today, this picture, or a sky of your imagination, and write one word to describe it. Or maybe a phrase of 2 or 3 words. And if you want to write a lot on your card, just circle up to a phrase up to 3 words long. And if you're up here and would like to speak your description of the sky, I'm going to invite you to do that. And then, if you like, you can go pick up the cards. Okay. Do you have any? No? Do you have a description for sky? A word? Can't think of any? Well, we'll let you think. Oh,
Never mind.
okay. Well, you could, oh, okay.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Okay. So, would you like to help pick up cards? No? Okay. Well, I'm going to go around and pick up some cards, and if someone else will help me, that would be great. And we'll only take a few because we could have a really long poem. So if you would like to share your card, please hold it up. Thank you. And we'll just take a few and see what we get. And then you could share afterwards. Oh, yes, I heard someone, we could have a whole book of poetry. Oh my goodness. Okay, as I said, I'm not going to be reading all of these, but you'll have a chance to share later. You have one? Oh. Okay, let's see. As I said, I can only... Okay. The sky was beautiful, fluffy, soft, delightful to witness, infinite, breathtaking, open and freeing, moving little wisps, quilted clouds, ever moving, never ending. I think that's a beautiful poem. So go ahead and give yourself a hand for that. And I will put the cards down here. So if you want to try to find your card when you come up for Joys and Concerns or at the end of the service, you may do that. And you can find a small group to share your lines and see what endless poems you can create. So thank you so much for sharing your words today. And we'll now sing the children out with Go with Joy. And the words will be projected here and in chat, and they're in the order of service.
Now is the time in our service when we share our joys and concerns, so that no one ever has to hold them alone. If you're joining us remotely this morning, you may wish to light a real or virtual candle wherever you are to mark what is on your heart, as those joining us in person in the sanctuary place stones in the water. If those of you at home would like to share what is in your heart today in the congregational chat, please remember to write to all attendees and note that what you share will be public. You may then read other joys and concerns shared in the chat and then enter into your own time of reflection and prayer. As we listen to the meditation music, feel free to do that. Let us be one in prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love that so faithfully animates our creation, we are grateful for this community that is with us in both times of joy and sorrow. We hold in our hearts this morning all those who are facing any hardship or difficulty, those who are grieving or facing illness or disability in themselves or friends or loved ones. In particular this morning, we light a special candle and we hold in our hearts and prayers those killed, hurt, or affected by the tornadoes and storms. Whether shared here this morning or held silently in our hearts, may our joys be multiplied in community, and may all gathered here find comfort and calm.
As a self-funded church, UU Reston relies on the generosity of its members and friends to fund daily operations and to ensure that the church and its resources are here for us now and in the future, and for others too. Pledges, yours and mine, support our worship and music programs, our religious education program, programs for members and friends, community outreach, and connections to Unitarian Universalism. We now invite you to support the work of UU Reston by making your donation to the collection plate if you're here in the sanctuary, or at the link on the slide and in the chat box if you're joining with us, if you've joined us. If you have joined us this morning on Zoom. How many times you say it, it just sometimes doesn't come out right. But I think you get the picture. Well, thank you for your generosity and support of our beloved spiritual home.
When I decided to write a sermon about Unitarian Universalist poetry, I found an anthology titled The Unitarian Universalist Poets, a Contemporary American Survey, edited by Jennifer Boswell and published in 1996, almost 20 years ago. So I decided to focus on it. And this is what it looks like. Leslie has a copy as well, if you want to borrow mine. Our very own former interim minister, Reverend Scott Alexander, is thanked in the acknowledgments. All of the poets included were writing poetry near the end of the 20th century. So poets you may be most familiar with, such as E.E. Cummings and William Carlos Williams, are excluded. From the more than 30,000 poems submitted, 122 poems were selected for inclusion in the anthology. Each poem is followed by a brief biography of the poet, and in many cases, reflections by the poet. While I was moved by many of the poems, I found some of the poet's reflections were equally or even more fascinating. Contributing editor Nita Penfold writes in her foreword, if, as Emerson tells us, poems are confessions of faith, then the poets here invoke Unitarian Universalism in all its individuality, complexity, simplicity, and contradiction. I've been writing poetry since I was very young, and I was accepted into the first cohort of the Swanee Young Writers Conference when I was in high school, and into Elizabeth Alexander's poetry class at Smith College, both competitive processes. If you're not familiar with Alexander, she was the fourth poet to read a poem at an American presidential inauguration, Obama's first inauguration in 2009. Her poem, The Venus Hottentot, gives voice to Saartjie Baartman, a Southern African woman who was exhibited nude at private balls, at carnivals, and in circuses in a cage. Georges Cuvier, a French scientist, performed horrifying experiments upon her as part of the scientific racism of the early 19th century. Alexander's poem, American Song, was permanently enshrined in stone at the Washington Cathedral last year. Though I currently write short stories more often than poems, poetry has stitched itself into my heart in ways that few things have. In August 2021, during the pandemic, I led a service titled Haiku as Spiritual Practice that many of you attended via Zoom. When invited to lead this service, I decided to revisit the power of poetry from a different angle by studying contemporary UU poets and their poems as I explore the question, how might words heal, create community, and move our spirits? The poems in the anthology are arranged in alphabetical order by poet's name, with the first poem being Atheist Conches by a poet known as Antler. A side note, I learned recently that some people use the pronunciation conches, but where I grew up on the Gulf Coast, we use the conch pronunciation. The first line in the poem is, are there conchs that don't believe after they die, they echo the sea? In early childhood memories, my elders, including my atheist stepdad, told us that if we listened to the conch shell, we would hear the ocean. I believed it without question, and holding it to my ear is always a magical experience, especially considering that being held by the calm, warm waves of the ocean has provided me the most comfort in times of great loss. Although Antler is not officially a UU, he writes, I have a soft spot in my heart for Unitarian Universalism because of its openness and awareness of the beauty of human love and lovemaking realized with tenderness and passion on every level, and its non-dogmatic and non-crusadesque demeanor of theological meditation, dialogue, and community contribution. One of the most valuable aspects of being a member of UUCR has been getting to know other members and friends. I met Leslie Tyson in 2019 when I joined the worship committee. We do check-ins at the beginning of our monthly meetings, and that's how I learned that Leslie is a poet and that she spends a lot of her time in community with other poets. When creating this sermon, I asked her if she'd share one of her poems with us, and she graciously agreed. Please join me in listening to Leslie's poem.
This poem, To Each Our Own Lives, came out of attending one of the numerous poetry readings that I go to. And poets tend to be very confessional about their lives. Poets are also very imaginative. And so, well, they're very imaginative. And there's a thing that all poets are granted called poetic license, which means that everything we say is truth, but sometimes we borrow somebody else's truth because they can't say the words. To each our own lives. It was the stray line about the path stealing off round the side of the house and into the woods that caught my attention. Became a distraction from the professional level of cruelty of some families. I only flinched a little when the trigger clicked and the cartridge thudded into the ground without stopping me running up a path to the ghosts I used to chase through chilled shadows on bright summer days when evil and pain were still foreign. Concepts I hadn't yet learned to translate silences between or to fear, the burning current of angry looks. Viewed in reverse memories, focus on detailed, blurred. By inexperience, but whose context might be learned later and applied, perhaps with misassembled logic, that can't accept the jumping, patchy memories as truly innocent when faced with the force of disasters of too many lives, and in that flood, one can't recognize when ego substitutes itself to dilute another's bruised reality into a diluted contortion of memories barely recalled in an attempt to find a common ground where one shares only a language to describe our separate lives. And the best name I can call myself is lucky.
Thank you, Leslie. If you read or listen to the news, you know that there is a lot of hatred being stirred up in this country, especially towards those who are marginalized. The second poem in the anthology is by the Darwin scholar, novelist, editor, and professor Philip Appelman, who passed away in 2020. It's titled, "And Then the Perfect Truth of Hatred." Having grown up in the Deep South, the poem took me back to a certain kind of evangelism that attempts to hide the hypocrisy and destruction that propels it. The first part of Appelman's poem introduces a militant preacher whose sermons scorch with, quote, all the omens of siege. I'll share the second part of the poem with you. It's been a while since that preacher went off to the big apartheid in the sky, and the only hint of eternal life is the way he resurrects each week to sell salvation on the screen. He's younger after all these years in designer suits and toothy smiles, but we know him by the cunning eyes. where he harbors his old stooges, Satan and Jehovah. He calls them up across the country. Glands begin pumping bile into our lives. Sleet storms in the voice. Cords in the neck like bullwhips. Broken promises, broken bones, the wreckage of his deep sincerity. About halfway through the anthology, I read a poem titled Stories on the Mountain by Terry Hermsen. It made me think of my youngest brother, Ross, who hiked the Appalachian Trail and whose birthday is today. The bio that follows the poem notes that Hermsen has led poetry hikes, night poetry hikes, in Ohio, Vermont, and California. And the poem appears, or at least part of it, appears to be about a night poetry hike. I'll share the last stanza of the poem with you. Lake Okoboji, northern Iowa. Growing up, I'd always thought it mythical. From our cabin, my mother, my two sisters, and I tracking down to the pier and just towels. My brother and stepfather laugh, refuse to join. But there we are, slipping into the dark. A stiff bright cold at first, warmer as we swim out toward the deeper water. In the reflection that follows his bio, Hermsen writes, the long UU traditions, especially those stemming from Emerson and Thoreau, like poetry, ask that we shape our own visions of the world. Like a poem, they ask that we accept not merely received explanation, but walk inside our experience, striking up whatever light we can. The light we create may be similar to or even drawn from that found in many religions, but it must first be found and lived with on our own. So what did I learn about UU poets, their poetry, and the possibilities it offers? That I have a lot more to learn. From the poets in this anthology and those published in other places, as well as those unpublished, from the poets in our UUCR community, from those of you, including our children and youth, with poems inside of you waiting to be voiced. Let us listen.
Our closing hymn is number 326, Let All the Beauty We Have Known. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together.
Celebrate with singing.
Let us close with a poem titled Sanctus I by Carol Simmering, who attends the First Unitarian Society of Newton, in which she reflects on the impact of chant in her life. Although I can no longer call what is holy God, that is to say, still, when my breath is taken away, when I see those solid sheets of sun coming out of the clouds, upon which in my younger days I imagined whole fleets of angels taking their leave of heaven to touch the earth and go back again. Or one stalk of grass in fall, bent, perfectly fragile and determined at the same time. Or the night sky away from the city, or the ocean, period. I say, this is holy. This is beyond what you could expect of things. But now I can no longer name it. One name or tie it neatly together with the strings of verse and chapter. It is the unnamed, the unbounded beauty of nature, the earth, and the skies humming, resonating in the spaces of the atoms which make me. I am driven at any rate to prayer in response, the very simplest of prayers. Amen. Amen.
The chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in the minds and hearts and souls of each one of you. Carry that flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet.